Hi, this is Jay Slazinski. I'm sitting here with professional golfer Ryan Howison. We're just going to ask him some questions about his career in golf. Ryan, how did you get started in golf?
Well, like a lot of kids, you start playing, your dad goes out, your mom goes out, you start playing, just hitting the ball around, having more fun driving the golf cart, things like that. But to be honest, I didn't play a lot growing up. There was a lot of other sports. I grew up in Ohio. The sports up there were football, baseball, and basketball, so that's what I played. Not many people played golf, to be honest with you, none of my friends. So it wasn't until I moved down to Florida that I started playing a little bit more, and then after college I went and played baseball at University of North Carolina. And literally the day after I got done playing, my senior year, I was on the driving range and decided that I wanted to give golf a shot.
So what year was that?
I was in 1989.
Wow, so you turned professional back in 89?
I turned in 90.
In 90. And you've had quite a career. You've played on the PGA Tour, I believe, a couple years?
Yep, a couple years.
And the Nationwide Tour, a lot of years.
I think I'm going on my 13th year on the Nationwide Tour.
Okay, and how did you get to the PGA Tour the first time?
The first time I did it, I had played a bunch of the mini tours beforehand, trying to learn the game. I was so far behind everybody when I started out because everyone played in college, I played in high school, and I didn't. So I didn't know basically anything. So I played the mini tours for a while, and then in 1994 I went to Q school and ended up birdieing my last hole to get my PGA Tour card on the number. And it was probably one of the most ecstatic times of my life. Actually, the next morning was even better. I woke up with just an absolute smile from ear to ear, and couldn't stop smiling for about a week.
That's awesome. The second time that you got out there, was that via the Nationwide Tour?
Yeah, I had finished 10th on the Nationwide Tour money list in 1999, so that gave me full privileges on PGA Tour for 2000. So that was a little easier. I was able to go play some fun events in December rather than grinding through Q school.
And you've won 3 times on the Nationwide Tour.
3 times, correct.
And can you give us any just feeling of that experience?
Well, obviously the first time is absolute. It rivaled the time that I made birdie to get onto the PGA Tour. All your friends and your family and people that you haven't heard from in years, they either see on the Golf Channel, which that one happened to be televised on the Golf Channel, or they read it in the newspapers or via the internet, and everybody ends up calling you. And the biggest kick I got is when I finally got to my phone, how many, it's one of those things, you have 22 messages. And it was so much fun listening to all those messages and just knowing that other people who had either supported me or played with me or housed me or whatever the case may be throughout the years got just as much kick out of me winning as I did.
That's great. One of the questions I have for you, more relating to why you play with us on the minor league golf tour instead of playing, say, the Gateway Tour or other tours like that when you're in your off season.
Well, the great thing about the minor league tour is just from a financial aspect. It's very inexpensive to enter events. You're paying less than $200 to get in versus the Gateway, you might pay up to $1,200 for an event. Those are 3 days event, and these are 1 day. But what I like about the 1 days is you can go out and you can work on things in your game. We're all aspiring to be on the PGA Tour, to rival the top players out there. And unless you learn how to play and you work on your game, you're never going to get there. If you were, you wouldn't be at this level right now. You'd already be, facing Tiger at the Masters. So the great thing about the minor league golf tour is that it's, especially the 1 day events are inexpensive. And if you go out and you have a bad day, but you're able to work on your game, it's no big deal. You haven't lost $1,000. If you go out and you play well, you can still make money. You win $1,000 in a 1 day event. That's pretty good return on your investment for 18 holes. So that's probably the biggest advantage, just purely financial, be an opportunity to work on your game. The competition has gotten quite a bit better, and it's anytime you can be in a tournament setting, it helps you in your golf career.
A lot of the young players out here really enjoy the chance to get to play with you, and they tell me when they're done how fun it was and what a class act you are. Do you have any kind of advice for these kids on tips for like a successful golf career?
Well, probably the biggest tip I have is you have to want it. You have to want it so badly that you eat, sleep, and breathe the game. Because the top players, the Vijay Singhs, the Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, they are practicing a lot. If they're not playing in tournaments, they're at home practicing. One of the greatest stories I ever heard, John Cook told me this. He lives out Isleworth with Tiger Woods, and Tiger Woods had just won the PGA Championship and beat Bob May in a playoff. And the next week was one of those NEC World Championship tournaments up in Firestone. And most people, and this is John Cook's telling me this, he said most people, they win a major, you know, you're celebrating, you might not get to sleep that night, you're definitely thinking about taking a day off. He said 8 o'clock the next morning, he was on the range at Isleworth working on his golf game. He had just won a major, 12 hours earlier, and across the country, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, he was on the range because he wanted to work on his game because he had a tournament coming up. Now, if the greatest player in the world, and maybe of all time, does that, you've got to be out there, and you've got to be working hard, going after it, getting in, playing as many tournaments as you can, working on your game, but at the same time you're working on it, you're working on scoring. You're trying to win these tournaments.
One of the things that, you and I have talked about is we see a lot of common mistakes that these young players are making. They're not necessarily prepared for the conditions they might encounter that day, or just various other things that you run into on the mini tours. Is there any routine you go through or anything that you do exactly the same before you play each day?
Well, pretty much you have to treat each day depending on what the weather conditions are. The weather conditions are the biggest factor in changing how a golf course plays. We all know that. Wind, rain, temperature, things like that. The things that guys need to work on most is generally flighting your golf ball. Because down here in South Florida, especially right now, it's March, the wind is howling here. So if you can't flight your golf ball, if you're hitting shots that are up and ballooning, and you can't control your distances when you're hitting into a 15-mile-an-hour wind, then you're going to struggle. Anybody can play golf in a dome-like conditions. Arizona this time of year, hardly a breath of wind, and you're just shooting a number. It's 155. That's a nice 8-iron. Well, what happens when it's 155 and the wind's gusting? You got a pin that you're not real comfortable with, but you've got to carry a bunker. You need to know that you're going to hit a golf shot that's going to go through the wind. It's going to go whatever yardage you need it to go, and you're not going to get these big flyers or up shooters, or these ones that low hooks that go too far. That's the biggest thing when the conditions change.
Well, Ryan, we really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us today. One of the things that I had talked to you about previously is that you were considering starting to work with some of these younger players in a way that you could help them develop their game.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been able to acquire throughout the numerous years I've been a professional and playing at all levels and playing with the best players, not just the best players that at that time, like the Normans and the Freddie Couples when they were in their prime, but playing with a lot of the best players when they were up and coming. I played a lot with Zach Johnson, quite a few other players that have now obviously gone on and had great success. So one of the things I'm able to do very well is I can assess talent, but I can also assess what people need to work on. It frustrates me sometimes when I'll play with somebody who's up and coming, and they'll say, I need to work on my swing, I need to work on my swing, and I watch them, and they hit the ball pretty well, but their short game is just horrible. Or their putting, their distance control in their putting's terrible. Or maybe they've got a good short game, but they can't hit it very far, or they can't hit certain types of shots. There's a lot of ways that you can have success on the PGA Tour, but there are some common variables that all the players do have, and that's the one thing that I can generally pick out from a player is I can look at him, play 9 holes, and I can say, hey, this guy has potential, he just needs to change A, B, and C, or this guy needs serious work if he ever wants to make. You got to remember, I was one of those guys that probably when I first started out, people were looking at me and go, he's got no shot. I also was probably of those guys the first guy to make it on the PGA Tour. Now, I improved my game a lot just from sheer hard work, but also watched people. I knew what I needed to fix, what parts of my game I needed to change, and that's what I'm able to pick out from other players. So if there's players out there that are wondering, what do I need to do to get to the next level, I'm able to pick that out for them and would be, happy to watch them play some, sit down with them, work a little bit, not necessarily as a swing instructor or things like that, but more of here, this is what we need to do. This is the shot you need to hit right here, and you need to be able to hit this shot to be able to move up to the next level.
Well, that sounds very interesting, Ryan. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that like to take you up on that. They'll be able to read about all that information on your website, which is www.ryanhowison.com.
That's correct.
And we appreciate you sitting with us today, and good luck this year.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ryan.